Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Go Ensemble. This episode will be a continuation of the childhood trauma episode. So today we will be talking specifically about physical abuse and neglect, the long-term physical effect of childhood trauma, and we'll also incorporate some coping mechanisms. So, girls, again, what do you guys have to say about physical abuse?
Well, first, why don't we say what do you guys think are some physical physical outcome from being from experiencing childhood trauma?
I
Physical.
think, I think we should mention that trauma, any form of trauma will have some effect on that person. And the I guess your amount of exposure to it can also lead to changes in your brain chemistry and the way your brain is the way your brain develops. Um, so having said that, with childhood trauma and repeated incidents, you can actually develop um, changes in your brain, alterations in your brain and your brain chemistry. I think also known as PTSD,
Yeah.
and that can result in continuous, for one example could be continuous misfires in your brain, where your brain is constantly sending signals of help, or we're in danger. And when your brain does send those signals, your body goes into a whole host of chemical reactions, and that has long-term effects on your health. You can
Absolutely.
experience things like high blood pressure. You can experience things like diabetes because your body's constantly in a state
In a
of
fight or
alertness.
in
Yes.
Yeah,
a fight or flight interaction. You
It's
could also
exactly.
experience anxiety or depression or sleep
Yeah,
disorders. You know,
autoimmune disorders. It's
yeah,
another one, and even certain types of cancers too. And what's happening is the fact that, like you said, you're constantly in a state of heightened stress, and that stress, which is the cortisol, it causes increased inflammation in your body, which can cause some chronic illnesses. You mentioned like cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, diabetes, and psychiatric disease, which is
yeah,
PTSD, anxiety, depression. So that's why we're having this conversation, because it is very important for us to do what we can do
mhm.
to prevent childhood trauma and address it, because it's not just that you go through it and it stays in your childhood, but we have lasting effect that follows us into adulthood.
yeah,
Right. And to even if you're not able to see how, something like that could lead to a physical manifestation, think if you are not, think about being in a constant state of fear because of traumas you've experienced, and think about how that will stop you from being able to experience a decent night of sleep like everybody else.
yeah,
So these are physical manifestations of experiencing childhood trauma.
Yes, sleep disturbances. You also have eating disorders, kids that are anorexic or bulimic. There's so many, and these kids also, because of the response that they have, they can experience, when they're in certain situations, they become more aggressive than someone who had not experienced like trauma in their during their childhood. So it which not only put them in danger, because let's say it's with the police,
Mhm.
a very simple encounter can turn into a fatal one. So, and it's very, very important that we recognize certain events that can be traumatic to children. And this one we're talking about physical, in a past episode, we talked about the emotional abuse and neglect, which can be a little bit more subtle. Since we're talking about physical, what do you guys think about corporal like punishments? Because I think that in certain communities, it's very
Prominent.
yeah, it is. It is very prevalent. We use it as a form of letting the child know that you're in the wrong. You're not supposed to do that. Instead of actually sitting down and explaining the reason why it's wrong. It's just I don't think it's the right way to do it, but I do know that is something that I've experienced myself personally. I've gotten a few
Yeah, I think yes, we've always gotten a few baton. But I think it goes back to what I mentioned in our last episode about treating our tiny humans as humans, telling, if you're as an adult, when you do something wrong, you are confronting your own mind. You are stuck there evaluating your action and deciding, maybe I didn't approach this situation the best way that I can. But as a child, you don't have that level of cognition yet, of development just yet, to be able to assess your action and understand why they're wrong. So your parent now is going to inflict corporal punishment, and after you did what you did and you've got punished for it, you just know that, oh, I did something wrong and I got punished, but you still don't know why you did, what was wrong about what you did, or how did it affect your parents in a way that they feel like you had to be punished for it.
And
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think-
realize the impact that it had on me until I think right before this recording. I was saying, I don't think it had any impact on me. And then to that guard, it said, well, how do you deal with conflict? How do you get aggressive? Do you get super frustrated? Do you get... So I think we also I think it's because it was so normal to us.
Yes.
I don't know a lot of other kids that didn't deal with that in Haiti. You know what I mean? So because it was so normal to me, and I was like, no, that's what they knew. That's what my parents knew. That's what were done to them. So that's what they knew. So I thought it was normal, and that it didn't have any negative impact on me.
Yeah, you don't really give the child the ability or the opportunity to think critically about their behavior. Yeah, I also I mentioned in the past video that like I struggled with like trying to attain this perfect ideal, to just being perfect. And I think part of that came from a fear of making mistakes, because I was taught to fear mistakes rather than mistakes were an opportunity for me to learn and grow.
Right.
And I think part of that came from just the fact that when you're hitting your child, you're teaching them fear of that thing that they did rather than an understanding of what they did.
Right. And come to think of it, fear is a major component of all this. I feel, when it comes to childhood trauma, it all goes back to fearing something or another. What are your thoughts, Sarah? You've been quiet here in the corner.
I'm just listening to you guys. And also, I do think I'm not sure which one of you guys mentioned it. It wasn't only our parents that enforces corporal punishment on us. It's like, any adult of authority. I remember in school, the nuns, they were able to give us a lot of tap in,
The rulers.
ears and stuff. So it's more so now, how do we respond to it? Is more so, do we get anything? Do we learn anything from getting lashed at? I don't think we do. We more so try to avoid doing it in their presence.
Yeah.
Right.
So I kind of don't understand the ideology behind beating your child or corporal punishment, to be honest, because I don't think
It comes from slavery.
Yeah, that's my
all
theory.
the effects of slavery. And I think it's still practiced in Haiti, if I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is.
In other countries, right? It's still practiced.
Yeah.
Can you please specify what you mean by it's still practiced?
It's still happening.
Like, are you talking about corporal punishment or are you talking
Yeah.
about slavery?
No, she
No,
means
corporal punishment.
Okay,
I love
good.
it.
I just thought we should clarify that.
Yeah.
right. So I recently read a study who looked at parents that use corporal punishment towards their kids versus parents that just use, you know, things like putting their child in timeout or just talking to them after they've done something wrong. And in the study, it mentioned that the parents that do use corporal punishment, their kids stop doing the activity for a while, but then they start doing it again. But the parents that actually had a discussion with their child about why they did something wrong, they understood better. They had a higher rate of not doing the same activity again.
Yeah.
And which is understandable because at a certain point, okay, you're gonna get a bottle one time, you're like, okay, I could take it, give it to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna get for it. I'm gonna get like, you know, 3 top, or like, you know, a 2 good cents you want, and then that's it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. So you're gonna get used to it. I think talking to the kid make her or him understand better the situation. So it's more so for us, you know, to bring in like the coping mechanism that we should have is for them to realize it, to recognize it, to respond, have a better response to it, and also for them not to like, you know,
Reoffend.
yeah, we like, you know, for the event not to reoccur.
Right.
Most likely. So I think talking to them is better.
So I think it's fair to agree that we are all against corporal punishment.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it doesn't work.
I don't think it works either.
Do we have specific like I asked before, can you guys think of any specific effects of corporal punishment as an adult? You know, how it affects you as an adult?
I think you become also you enforce corporal punishment upon other people. Let's say
Yes.
you may be in a relationship, then you become abusive to your partner or whoever else. It could be like, you know, a sister, it could be a cousin. So you become like, you know, aggressive.
More prone to aggression.
Yeah, towards other people.
Or you know, with your kids, because that's what you learned that was the way to deal with certain situation, then you're kind of prone to doing it. Like I'm talking for me, but I have to stop myself and say it's like it becomes instinctive
Right.
to just that's the first option. That's what you want to do,
Yeah.
but then you have to stop for a second and say, I know this doesn't work, so I need to do better. You know, you say to your kid, you know, come here, let me tell you why this is not the way for you to, you know, to talk to me, or please do not do that again, and this is the reason why I'm telling you not to do it. The thing is, kids, they're tiny humans. They understand more than we think that they do. They might not react to it at the moment right away, but you'll be surprised. They're sponges. They absorb everything. That a month or two, they're actually verbalize it back to you. So that means you don't think that you do, when you do something like that, you're doing it in vain. It actually works. And to answer your question, it is something that it's learned behavior, you know, and you're more prone to repeat it, but you just have to stop yourself, make an effort not to do the same thing, because it really doesn't work. And for me, that's my personal experience.
And I think there are the better way to inflict punishment, I guess, you know, towards a kid if they're misbehaving. You could take away a game that they like. You could cut like a certain time that they have playtime. You know, tell them, okay, you're going to read or you're going to do something else. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to inflict pain upon that child in order for them to understand the message that you're trying to relate.
Right.
You know, so So for someone to kind of like be inclined to go towards punishment, to me, I mean, I understand it. Like we said, it's a learned behavior. It's like a cycle. But now as an adult, I know it does not work.
Well,
And
this
I knew
brings
that
me
as a
back.
child too.
This brings me to ask this question. What do we think of physical neglect and how that affects, us as adults in terms of experiencing that type of childhood trauma?
I think that's something we need to be really careful about when we're talking about punishment, because you can like you said, Sarah, you can punish your child by taking away something that they can truly go without, like a game or something that they enjoy doing. But you have to be careful, because neglect comes when you take away basic needs. You cannot say you're gonna punish your child and not feed them, or withhold water, or socially isolate them, because then it's not it's neglect.
Also
It's not
traumatic.
really dealing with the situation.
Well,
So
I mean,
Speaking of social
course.
neglect, though, but speaking of social neglect, would you say, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate, but
Mhm.
could we say that like a timeout would be social neglect?
There are rules to the timeout because you can't put your child on timeout for like 20 minutes.
6 hours.
There are rules to it. Yes, you can put them on timeout, but there's a time frame to the timeout. You could put them on timeout for like 2 to 3 minutes. Let's say 5 minutes the most, but you can't go like put them on time. Go to your room for like an hour. No, that is neglect. And as far as like,
So 2 to 3 minutes?
yeah.
that sounds very short to me. That what are they
does.
gonna
I think it depends
learn?
on
2,
age.
3, 5 minutes,
Okay,
like,
I,
think
I
like
What are they
agree.
gonna?
I think it
So
depends on the age.
yeah,
Yeah.
depending on the age.
so
Yeah.
technically, with punishment, we're trying to teach the child that their action have
They have
consequences,
Consequences,
Yeah.
exactly.
right? And I feel like
Versus like
our
inflicting
parents
pain on them.
then feel like something like a 2 to 3 minutes impact would have a lasting effect on someone.
Well, let's say we're talking about like a toddler.
Hmm?
You can't put a toddler on timeout for 10 minutes. You know,
You really can't.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
age does play.
yeah,
That's
so it
pretty well.
depends on the age bracket, and also as far as like what you said, Jeffan. Yes, food and stuff like that. I mean, I would hope people
Or
wouldn't
not withholding.
equate taking away something like that to inflict to try to relate a message to their kids. What I'm saying is like video games, stuff that they like, they use for pleasure, basically.
Right.
Like a TV, like okay, no TV and stuff,
Right.
because you don't need it. They don't need TV. What?
Do we feel like social isolation though? Like Tal mentioned, do we feel like social isolation as a child, as a form of punishment, has lasting effect as an adult in terms of how
Absolutely.
you relate to
Absolutely.
society?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Kids
Yeah, I think,
thrive.
sorry.
They thrive on social interactions. That's why with this pandemic, it's really it's not ideal for kids to do remote learning, because they need to play with their friends. So yes, social isolation can have detrimental effect, long lasting effect on them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tal, you
What
can
you
It could
say,
be
yeah.
socially
No, it's okay.
awkward and other things.
Yeah, also the danger with like punishing a child with social isolation is you start to teach the child that they have to be perfect or they have to be on their best behavior in order to receive love, in order to receive like, well, I guess you have to be on your best behavior to receive attention, good attention. But like you don't want your child to feel like they have to perform in order to be accepted. I think teaching them that like, all emotions are accepted and all emotions are valid. But they should take a time out. They should take a break if their actions and their emotions are having a negative impact on those around them. I think that's the whole point of timeout, but not to like teach them that they can't they can't be part of a community if they're not perfect or if they don't behave perfectly.
And
you know?
this is why I'm scared to have kids. Right? No,
It becomes
it's true.
second
We're having a
nature.
whole conversation, and
does.
I feel like it's complicated to know what's right and what's wrong, what's too much and what's not. And I feel like something that we can feel is because I look at it and I'm like 20 minutes is not too much. And Sarah is talking about 2 to 3 minutes. So how
20
much
minutes
is
is
too
not too
much?
much.
It's
I mean,
Yeah,
it
it's a lot.
truly, I feel like
depends on the age.
it's
It really does depend on the age.
exactly. And
And
we are stepping out of, I feel like we are, getting our way with ourselves. Yes, the point is, it matters what the age is, because you don't expect a toddler who just learned how to walk to stay in timeout for longer
For
than
20
3
minutes.
minutes.
their
Yeah.
attention span is not even that long. So it's
Yeah.
kind of impossible. And Woodland, I did want to make a statement regarding what you said. I feel like parenting is the one job that you learn on the job. Like you can't.
Right.
It's like you're constantly learning, and it's all about doing what works for you and your family.
Right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
come with the manual.
Can't Google
What
it.
works, yeah, what might work for one parent doesn't work for another one.
Mhm.
So it's something that you, until you do it, you really don't know how. You might think that you would be the worst parent, but you end up being the best parent, or vice versa. So
And I think
it's
there's no such thing as being like a perfect parent.
Parent.
no, there's
Yeah.
no perfection.
I think whatever happens. No, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm being
No, please share. Please share.
No, I was about to say that your kid is always gonna find at least one thing that they kind of blame you for. But I'm exaggerating. I take that back.
I think well, here's the thing. Like I think if you can A, communicate to the child that they are still loved and they are loved, I think that can trump a lot of things. Also, having that open communication and that like intimacy with your child where you can admit that maybe you make mistakes too. They understand that you make mistakes and they have the opportunity to forgive you, just as much as you
At a
have an
young
opportunity
age,
to forgive
yeah.
them.
And they
I
can
think
understand
I
that
think
early
I
on
think
too.
yeah, they can
Right.
understand that early on. I mean, you show them compassion, they can learn to show you compassion as well. No one's going to be perfect, and I think they'll understand that. And I think also you being able to show that you're not perfect. I think that helps them understand that nobody is perfect, and it helps them to accept themselves as well. But yeah, I just want to put that out there. I know we're putting a lot out there, and I don't want people to feel like they're incapable of parenting. I'm not a parent myself, but like I don't think that this whole point isn't like to discourage anyone. But like yeah.
I wanted to say, are we touching base as far as abuse within a relationship? How
I
do you
guess
guys feel about that?
what type of relationships? Because we're talking about childhood trauma. So would
Yeah, how does that affect your relationship?
Oh,
you mean between
romantic
the
relationship.
parents, the effect on the child?
No, as in like, if
Romantic
you were to
relationship.
experience it as a child, how does that affect your relationship with your partner?
It
Yeah.
would, you probably will have unhealthy, you bring your baggage into that relationship where you're probably you would have some trouble kind of like understanding your
develop-
partner.
Right. You develop you don't have attachment issues is
Yes.
usually what the problem that comes with having childhood trauma. You learn to associate the wrong thing as love, and you start to what you needed to deal with your childhood trauma is what you start looking for in other people, whether they're the right person or not. So you start looking past everything else and you start focusing on this one thing that I needed. And if you have that, you must be the right person without contemplating everything else. I feel that's one issue that could develop from having childhood trauma and in terms of your romantic relationships.
Yeah, I
imagine.
think
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
it goes
Yeah, I
back to
think-
what you told me before. It goes back to it affects how we deal with conflict in
Yeah.
general. How
Exactly,
aggressive
yeah.
we get, how impatient we get, how frustrated we get. it affects how or ability to just stay calm maybe, or to have a normal conversation as opposed to becoming aggressive.
Yeah,
I want to go
I
back
want
to
to echo that. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I think it definitely like affected the way like I would communicate sometimes when conflict would arise. Yeah.
But one thing, I'm going to go back to one thing that I probably said before, that our parents are human. And I think I've learned that because I have bad days sometimes, and I have to understand that, you know, they deal with a lot of stuff. They deal with stress from their jobs that I deal with right now. And I live alone and I have no one else. Well, I don't live alone. I live with my parents, but I have no one else to take care of, but it still affects me greatly. So you have that stress added to a kid, added to tiredness, you know, and added to a whole lot of things. So we have to understand that they're human just like us, and they will make mistake. And I think for us too, we will make mistakes as parents, right?
And
And that is
Speaking it into existence, guys.
that's the reason why I was thinking, I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I was thinking we'll talk about that another time, but
Say it briefly.
Yes, it seems
well,
like we
that
are running out of
there are certain populations, certain families that are more vulnerable and that are more at risk for abuse.
Mhm.
If you have a child with disability, it's proven that there's going to be more tension, more friction, like chronic illnesses. There are a few things that actually put certain families more at risk to have like abuse within their environment. So we can discuss it another time.
I know there's so many aspects to cover when it comes to just dealing with or traumas in general. And it makes sense. Life it's a bit complicated, and we have to accept that there are things that we may not be able to fix, but what we can do is be conscious on how we react to our actions. With that being said, thank you guys for this wonderful discussion, and thank you again everyone for joining us for another episode of Let's Grow Awesome. Catch us on Facebook and on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel.
Yay!
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I see Gigi in the background.
I know, I saw
comment,
it too.
like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, very
Not that
important.
forcefully though.